At first glance, the satellite photos of this docked transport ship seem harmless enough. However, within those pink containers is a secret that North Korea wants to keep hidden. In response to North Korea's nuclear proliferation, the United Nations Security Council imposed sanctions against the military dictatorship in 2006. The most extensive sanction to date was adopted in 2017. This banned the purchase of North Korean exports, including coal, textiles, and seafood. Additionally, North Korea could no longer import petroleum in the same quantity as it had before. Still, global corporations seeking to conduct business with the highly despised country found ways to use a secretive fleet of vessels to smuggle in illegal goods. The United Nations had reported that North Korea's network of illicit trade activities included ship-to-ship transfers of cargo. These transfers meant to circumvent sanctions placed on the country, rendering the international community's actions ineffective. The UN added that the majority of the illegal transfers between ships commenced in the East China Sea as boats moved from the South China Sea, closer to Lianyungang. Smartly, the reduction in the distance also reduces the likelihood of exposing North Korean vessels to Western ships or international authorities. Furthermore, speculation surrounding the change in location for illegal trading forced faster deliveries, which ended up being more cost-effective. Bulk carriers, such as those identified in the photo, present a worrying challenge as they fully demonstrated North Korea's commitment to violating the UN sanctions. A report on the matter stated, quote, "The utilization of larger vessels with a carrying capacity 2 or 3 times that of the DPRK vessels suggests that much larger quantities of illicit coal can be shipped per voyage." The North Korean ships use an array of advanced evasive techniques to cover their dealings. Identity theft, illegal name changes, misrepresentative contracts, and misleading signals directed at boats, satellites, and coastal stations allows North Korea to deal in plain sight. 2019 marked an increase in these illicit trade activities. North Korea reportedly exported 3.7 million tons of coal to an unidentified nation that year, an estimated price tag of $370 million US. The ship photographed at the port is the MV Wise Honest, a North Korean 17,061-ton bulk carrier. It was captured at a port in Indonesia, carrying 25,500 tons of coal on board, priced at $2.9 million. It had evaded detection by registering unlawfully by sailing without a national flag. Indonesian port authorities noted the discrepancy and immediately investigated. They reported the South Korean company Enermax was the intended receiver, which would then transfer ship to ship and head for the port city Balikpapan in Borneo. Enermax stated that there was no intended import of coal on their behalf, but that they had received an offer from, quote, "someone who seemed to be a local broker in Indonesia." Whether this allegation is true is unclear. Nevertheless, it does match up with devious North Korean strategies to circumvent its sanctions. The U.S. Justice Department released a statement supporting this allegation, which stated, quote, "Participants in the Korean Songi scheme attempted to conceal the Wise Honest's DPRK affiliation by falsely listing different countries for the Wise Honest's nationality and the origin of the illicit coal and shipping documentation." On August 4, 2017, further attempts to conceal the exact origin of the Wise Honest were made by not sending out an AIS signal from the ship. It was a clear violation of international navigation procedures. In April 2018, the vessel was seized by the Indonesian government and handed over to American authorities the following month. Still, South Korean and Indonesian companies weren't the only ones complicit in North Koreans' illicit activities, unwittingly or otherwise. In March 2018, the Wise Honest carried coal valued at $750,000, transporting it from Nampo, North Korea. Linked to the payment was a U.S. financial institution in violation of American and international law. Chinese companies have also been linked to North Korean vessels conducting illicit trading. In September 2019, the Chinese Laochuanzhang 717 bulk carrier was spotted near the Jiangsu province port, 600 kilometers from Beijing. Here, the carrier made a ship-to-ship transfer with the North Korean Jinhong 9. Its location was only discovered by satellite imagery. It conducted the trade while also in the proximity of the North Korean Everglory. The Chinese ship proceeded to offload coal at a port in Hebei province, as reported by the United Nations panel in charge of monitoring compliance with North Korean sanctions. That same month, the Fuxing 9 was used by a Chinese shipping business. It was spotted after meeting with North Korean vessels at sea. The Chinese ship already conducted trade, despite reports from the Chinese government that they had disrupted activity after purchasing it in June 2019. 3 different visits to North Korean ports were performed by this vessel at the end of 2019. A Security Council diplomat reportedly told VOA News, quote, "It's quite concerning that the evidence is beginning to show that the Chinese government is either actively supporting UN-prohibited activity or at the very least being criminally negligent." According to South Korean IBK Economic Research Institute analyst Cho Bung-hyun, quote, North Korea doesn't have many big ships it can use for exports. If this size of ship is seized and that seizure isn't lifted quickly, it would greatly damage North Korea. In fact, the ship was seized. A Southern District of New York federal court judge ordered the forfeiture of the Wise Honest, which had already been in American custody due to its violation of sanctions. Justifying the forfeiture, the Justice Department established that the vessel was active in illicit coal trading. Ironically, it was a direct result of tricking American banks. Payments made for maintenance and upgrades to the ship were cashed in US dollars, obtained through shady dealings by North Korea using false information and resulting in no recoupment. Now, the United States government officially owns the Wise Honest. Assistant Attorney General of National Security John C. Demers stated, quote, This order of forfeiture sinks the Wise Honest's career as one of North Korea's largest sanctions-busting vessels. The Department of Justice will continue to pursue other property used to violate U.S. and international sanctions around the globe with the cooperation of our international partners. How North Korea retaliates or whether it continues its illicit behaviors remains to be seen. Speculation that the forfeiture will only strengthen North Korea's resolve to fool countries and companies into illegally trading with them surrounds UN nations. In the summer of 2023, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un met with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Russia's Far East. Following a tour of a Russian fighter jet factory that's under Western sanctions, as well as a critical Russian spaceport, the North Korean leader pledged Pyongyang's full and unconditional support for Russia's security and defense needs. Only a month later, satellite images would confirm that this exchange goes much further than initially thought. North Korea is supplying hundreds of boxes filled with ammunition for the war against Ukraine. Analysts say in return for supporting the Kremlin, North Korea may be interested in advanced technologies from Russia for its weapons, and most importantly, its nuclear program. When Russia began its war against Ukraine, nobody thought it would last as long as it has. Now, dangerously low on ammunition, a poorer Russia is turning to one of its oldest and most controversial allies. In 1948, relations between Moscow and a newly formed Pyongyang government began strong when Soviet officials installed the nationalist Kim Il-sung, the late grandfather of Kim Jong-un, as the country's first ruler. For decades, Soviet aid shipments were crucial for keeping the North Korean economy afloat. With some of this money, North Korea has been producing large amounts of artillery shells and rockets compatible with Soviet and Russian weapons in case war breaks out with their southern neighbor. In the summer of 2023, Kim Jong-un visited Russia on his first diplomatic trip since the COVID-19 pandemic, and the longest in his time in power as Supreme Leader of North Korea. During this visit, Kim visited Russian military and technical sites and met with senior military officials. He called for an exponential increase in the production of nuclear weapons for his country to play a more significant role in a coalition of nations confronting the United States in a new kind of Cold War. The North Korean ruler also called his country's relations with Russia his top priority and pledged full support for President Putin. While the two nations confirmed boosting their defense ties without specifics, analysts worldwide began speculating on the nature of their dealings. The arrangement would put them in clear violation of the United Nations Security Council resolutions. This would all be confirmed 1 month later. On October 13, 2023, John Kirby, a National Security Council spokesman, announced that as many as 1,000 containers with varied equipment and munitions had been delivered from North Korea to Russian borders in recent weeks. This announcement was complemented by a White House photo release of imagery of about 300 containers assembled in North Korea, delivered to an ammunition depot in southwestern Russia near Tukharetsk, only 180 miles away from the Ukrainian border. But newer satellite images, analyzed by the British Royal United Services Institute, or RUSI, suggest that North Korea's trade of military equipment and munitions is a much more elaborate and extensive operation than initially thought. Not one, but 2 ships have been traveling since mid-August, going back and forth between the northeastern North Korean port of Rajin and a secure port facility in Dunai in Russia's Far East at least 5 times. Although it is impossible to tell what is being transported, the images show ships linked to the Russian military logistics network, strongly suggesting these commercial vessels carry military equipment. This analysis provided the clearest evidence that, after support from Russia for decades, Pyongyang is now helping poor Moscow's war effort. Previously, the two ships had no record of running this route between North Korea and Russia until after the high-level meetings between the two nations. The satellite image analysis made by RUSI found that the Russian-flagged cargo ship, the Angara, began traveling between Regin, North Korea, and Dunai, Russia, as early as mid-August. Toward the end of the month, another Russian vessel, Maria, became involved in a similar path. Shortly before they began operating along this route, according to the ship tracking website Marine Traffic, the two vessels turned off the signal of their automatic identification system, allowing Maria and Angara to hide their position as they illegally transited between ports. Also, around the same time, there was a rapid expansion of munition pits at an ammunition depot in Tikhoretsk, close to the front lines. In the analyzed images, the two ships make multiple trips between Dunai and Regin, picking up and delivering cargo at each location. At the Regin port, the two ships load and unload containers at different docks. In Dunai, the ships have unloaded their cargo while accompanied by a military vessel. Conveniently, North Korea makes two of the types of munitions that Russia has used heavily in the war: the Soviet-era 122mm Grad rockets and 122mm howitzer artillery rounds. Now, desperately in need of more, as the war against Ukraine continues with no end in sight, North Korea and Russia have been collaborating for longer than the West initially thought. Other weapons also likely part of this exchange include artillery platforms and rocket launchers. The duo have made at least 5 trips since, moving hundreds of containers, according to the images. The latest delivery from North Korea to Russia took place on October 14th. Angara is owned by M Leasing, a Russian company that has already been sanctioned by the United States, the United Kingdom, and Ukraine for the transportation of weapons and military equipment in the interest of the Russian government. This company is in turn handled by Marine Transshipping, another controversial maritime shipping company sanctioned for transporting weapons for the Russian government. As for Maria, registration documents show a company called JSC Sofracht is associated with the vessel. In 2019, the United States named Sofracht as a company behind a sanctions evasion conspiracy to aid Russian forces operating in Syria in support of the regime of Bashar al-Assad. North Korea is not the first, and probably not the last rogue state that Russia has turned to for help during its grueling attrition war with Ukraine. Since 2022, Moscow has relied heavily on Iranian-made explosive drones to use on Ukrainian cities, civilians, and the country's infrastructure for over a year. Both of these partnerships have unsurprisingly drawn sharp criticism and condemnation from Washington. Following the critical announcement about this arms trade, American spokesman John Kirby stated, quote, "This expanding military partnership between the Democratic People's Republic of Korea and Russia, including any technology transfers from Russia to the DPRK, undermines regional stability and the global non-proliferation regime." Jack Watling, senior research fellow for land warfare at RUSI, also said that this exchange would likely have a severe impact on the trajectory of the war in Ukraine because of the already in-stock ammunition amounts by North Korea. In return for support, RUSI and the USA believe that Pyongyang is seeking military assistance from Russia, from fighter aircraft, armored vehicles, ballistic missile production equipment, and more advanced technologies. Since the early days of the Ukraine war, President Biden's administration has voiced suspicion that North Korea has supplied weapons to Russia. These beliefs were only amplified as it became clear last year that Moscow was running low on advanced weaponry and was expending massive amounts of shells in what has since become essentially an artillery-first war. Likewise, the USA and allies have searched the world for additional munitions for Ukraine, including the 155mm shells used by US-provided howitzers and other caliber shells for Soviet-era artillery still in use by Ukraine. In response to the violations caused by Russia, the United States decided to end the war as soon as possible and has already imposed sanctions on individuals working to facilitate arms deals with Russia. According to Kirby, America will enforce those where appropriate and will likely impose new sanctions against anyone who seeks to enable Russia's continuation of the war with Ukraine. In December 2023, satellite imagery captured something that shook Western analysts: the the site of a Russian Candid airlifter stationed at a new facility built exclusively to modify it at Pyongyang's airfield in North Korea. On closer inspection, the intelligence community noticed the Soviet-era aircraft was carrying a radome on top of its fuselage. It could only mean one thing. North Korea was working on an early warning radar aircraft, or AEW&C. These highly advanced aircraft allow the military to conduct surveillance operations thanks to its wide array of radar and sensory systems that can detect aircraft, ground targets, surface vessels, and even missiles from over 100 miles away. It would also allow the North Korean People's Army Air Force to synchronize with ground troops and other military assets to increase combat effectiveness during operations. With North Korea updating these capabilities and its outdated Soviet-era aircraft, specialists wonder why Pyongyang is using its limited resources on this advanced system, and more importantly, who's helping them. Early Warning and Control, or EWAC aircraft, also known as Airborne Early Warning and Control, or AEW&C, are specialized units equipped with advanced radar and sensor systems for surveillance. These early warning radar aircraft are designed to detect and track aircraft, missiles, and naval vessels over long distances, significantly beyond the capability of ground-based radar systems. AEW&C aircraft play a crucial role in modern military operations' airborne surveillance, command, control, and communication functions. These aircraft are employed in several roles. The most important one is airborne surveillance, which provides a detailed, real-time picture of the battle space and detects enemy aircraft and missiles at long ranges, often before ground-based radar systems can. Additionally, AEW&C aircraft can serve as airborne command centers, coordinating military operations in the air, on the ground, and at sea, providing leaders with a detailed overview of the battlefield from all the assets engaging the enemy. Coupled with the previous role, early warning radar aircraft also function as communication relays, linking several units of the attacking forces to ensure optimal battlefield cooperation and coordination through a secure network the enemy cannot access. By providing the best communication between the attacking forces, AEW&C aircraft also enhance their combat effectiveness with the latest intelligence available, dramatically changing the outcome of engagements. Last but not least, these highly advanced aircraft can also be tailored for electronic warfare, carrying out signals intelligence, or SIGINT, electronic surveillance, and electronic countermeasures missions to disrupt hostile communications and radar. With all the impressive capabilities early warning radar aircraft possess, it's no wonder why North Korea, which has always stayed behind in aircraft technology, has opted to acquire them through their most reliable arms supplier, Russia. In early December 2023, Planet Labs published highly detailed satellite images that showed several aircraft grounded at the Pyongyang International Airport, North Korea. A large white plane stood out among them. The aircraft in question was identified as a Russian Ilyushin IL-76 Candid by Decker Eveleth from the James Martin Center for Non-Proliferation Studies. Although the North Korean Air Force is no stranger to the Ilyushin IL-76 Candid, this one stood out due to one peculiar modification, a possible rotodome mount above the fuselage. Taking a closer look at the images, the Candid is seen with an object mounted just after the wing, the exact position where rotodomes are mounted on early warning radar aircraft. Experts around the web claim this is unmistakable evidence that North Korea is currently fielding AEW&C aircraft for its Air Force. Although the pictures are very detailed, the modifications cannot be fully appreciated. Nonetheless, additional proof lies in where the Ilyushin IL-76 Candid was stationed, a new sectioned-off compound next to a maintenance hangar. According to Planet Labs, construction of this new compound, which is currently restricted to military personnel only, began in late September 2023. The latest satellite images display the radome already firmly attached to the Russian Candid, and the work is consistent with early warning and radar aircraft. Since December 2023, the modified Candid has not been seen again. However, more details were gathered about it. For instance, sources claim the identified IL-76 belongs to Air Koryo, a state-owned flag carrier of Communist North Korea that employs 3 aircraft of the same type. The 3 of them have already been employed by the military, and even painted with camouflage for military exercises in the peninsula. The Ilyushin IL-76, dubbed Candid by NATO, is a 4-engine, multi-purpose strategic airlifter devised during the Cold War. It flew for the first time in 1971 and was introduced to active duty in 1974. Over 970 Candids have been produced to this day, and it has seen extensive service with the Soviet Air Forces, now the Russian Air Force, and the Ukrainian and Indian militaries, among others. Besides its military use, the Candid has also served successfully as a commercial freighter delivering cargo across the globe and as an emergency response transport aircraft for humanitarian aid. The airlifter has a crew of 5, a cargo capacity that ranges from 92,000 to over 130,000 pounds, and a maximum takeoff weight of 418,000 pounds. A Candid is 152 feet long and 48 feet tall, has a wingspan of around 165 feet, and is powered by 4 Soloviev D30KP turbofans, which can bring it to a speed of 580 miles per hour and cover a range of 2,700 miles. Since its inception, the Candid has evolved into several specialized variants, one of which is the Beriev A50 mainstay, an AEW&C model equipped with a Liana surveillance radar, with an antenna placed in an over-fuselage rotodome with a diameter of 30 feet. The radar Vega M can track up to 150 targets simultaneously within a range of 140 to 250 miles, according to the target size. Overall, this AEW&C variant has a detection range of around 400 miles for air targets and over 190 miles for ground objectives. As if that was not enough, rumors around the military sphere state a more powerful variant of the Beriev is around the corner. Dubbed the A100, this AEW&C is expected to debut in late 2024. This might explain why North Korea has finally jumped on the train to acquire the Russian Candid. Besides Russia, India and China also employ the IL-76 platform as the basis for their AEW&C aircraft. Some examples are the A-50 mainstay and the KJ-2000 main ring, respectively. Based on the satellite images available, it's very likely that Russia is directly providing help to North Korea in developing a Candid with early warning and radar capabilities. It's unknown, however, whether these will be the latest available or the ones from the Beriev A-50, first introduced in the late 1970s. Following North Korea's tradition, its air forces are known for incorporating outdated Soviet-era aircraft. In this regard, the North may receive outdated but still reliable Beriev A-50 systems for incorporation with their Candids. As for the reason behind Russia's cooperation, the answer lies behind the country's invasion of Ukraine in February 2022. The war in Eastern Europe has brought the two countries closer together. North Korea has provided the Russian army with over 10 shipments of munitions, including more than 1 million artillery rounds. Russia may continue providing North Korea with more technology as the war in Ukraine escalates. Despite receiving outdated technology, entry-level AEW&C capability would allow North Korea to integrate it with more advanced Russian fighters and air defense systems as they are delivered. Furthermore, the Candid AEW&Cs will allow North Korea to extend its radar coverage and warn the military of potential attacks from South Korea, be it in the form of aircraft or missiles. South Korea has been heavily investing large amounts of money in low-flying cruise missiles for the last few years, to the point that North Korea has considered its neighbor to be preparing to field nuclear weapons. If true, the Russian Candid AEW&Cs will allow North Korea to track these missiles. Currently, its ground-based radars are incapable of doing so until they are at close range. North Korea has invested in surveillance technology for the last 5 years. In July 2023, the country unveiled its latest lines of drones based on the American General Atomics MQ-9 Reaper and the Northrop Grumman RQ-4 Global Hawk. The first indigenous drones appeared publicly during the Weapons and Equipment Exhibition 2023 in Pyongyang. According to sources, the RQ-4 Global Hawk copy is designated Morningstar 4, while the MQ-9 copy is dubbed the Morningstar 9. South Korea noticed its neighbor's trend and sought to bolster its AEW&C capabilities as well. The country already employs 4 American Boeing E-737 aircraft and has launched a competition for global allies to submit their proposals. Besides Boeing, other American companies, such as L3 Harries, have joined the fight against Swedish company Saab and other NATO allies. For now, it remains to be seen how these latest surveillance investments by North and South Korea will affect the relations between both countries and the overall military tensions in the Korean Peninsula. An unusual bright yellow submarine was caught on camera off of San Clemente Island near San Diego, California, and the intriguing images spread like wildfire around the internet in early 2019. The first photo appears to show a tug towing the mysterious vessel into position, while in the second, a crew of Navy personnel seems to be submerging her. However, it was not just the vehicle's vivid color that drew the public's attention. This enigmatic submarine bore an eerie resemblance to North Korea's Sang-O, or Shark class, a lethal torpedo-laden diesel-electric military submarine designed for missions ranging from mine-laying to special forces insertion. As sharp-eyed commentators pointed out the similarities with the Sang-O, online forums were ablaze with heated discussions regarding the submarine's true identity and exactly what it was doing in American waters. Before long, experts began speculating that a highly classified operation had led to the United States successfully capturing a submarine from the North Koreans. If this were the case, the question remained of what they were using it for now and why they were keeping it hidden from the public. As the totalitarian North Korean government goes to great lengths to keep its military capabilities under wraps, many details about the Sang-O class are still shrouded in secrecy. However, it's believed that the Sang-O is the most common submarine used by the Korean People's Navy, the maritime branch of the country's armed forces, with reports suggesting there could be up to 40 units currently in operation. At approximately 115 feet long, and with a submerged displacement of around 325 tons, it is likely the second largest of North Korea's indigenously built submarines after the Sinpo or Gorae class. It is understood construction of the Sang-O class submarines began in 1991 at the Sinpo shipyards, with an initial production rate of 4 to 6 submarines annually by 1996. However, production seemed to slow in 1997, with only 3 submarines reportedly built, and it is still uncertain how many, if any, were constructed in the years that followed. Boasting 4 533mm torpedo tubes and the capacity to transport up to 16 mines, the Sang-O plays a significant part in helping North Korea pose a lethal threat to the naval assets of neighboring South Korea, with which it has been locked in an intense and bitter rivalry since the division of the country in 1945 led to the formation of the two ideologically opposed states. However, when the Sang-O class submarine made headlines around the world in 1996, it was not because of an underwater attack on their enemy's ships, but for its key role in a dramatic clandestine mission. On September 15th of that year, a Sang-O transported a 3-person Special Operations Reconnaissance Team to South Korea's east coast near Jeongdong-jin, 12 miles southeast of Gangneung, Gangwon-do. While their immediate assignment was to gather data on the naval presence in the area before returning, this was actually part of a larger plan involving a total of 26 commandos to assassinate South Korean President Kim Jong-sam while he opened a national sports event in nearby Chuncheon 3 weeks later. Having failed in its initial attempt to collect the team on September 16th, the Sang-O went back the next day to try again. However, this time, things were to turn out even worse for the North Koreans, as the submarine unexpectedly ran aground. Despite their best efforts, the crew members were unable to free her, leaving them little choice but to start a fire to destroy the sensitive equipment inside before splitting up into small groups and endeavoring to escape on land. When one group drew suspicion from a local taxi driver, the authorities were alerted, leading to a 49-day-long manhunt that would eventually lead to the demise or capture of all but one of the 26 commandos. Meanwhile, the Sang-O class submarine was salvaged by the South Korean authorities, and it was subsequently put on display at Tongdeol Park near Gangneung to serve as a reminder of North Korean infiltration attempts and as a piece of military history. Despite a brief improvement in the relationship between the two countries in the early 2000s, in recent years, North Korea has continued to escalate tensions with South Korea and their American allies by making clear its nuclear ambitions and engaging in a series of military provocations. In March 2010, the South Korean corvette ROKS Chonan sank near Baekneung Island in the Yellow Sea, leading to the tragic loss of 46 sailors. International investigators concluded that a North Korean torpedo caused the sinking. While the exact type of submarine used in the attack is unknown, there is certainly a reasonable chance it was a Sang-O class. As tensions between North and South Korea have remained fraught in the ensuing years, the risk of all-out war breaking out is never too far away. Were that to happen, there's little doubt that the Sang-O would serve as a pivotal element in North Korea's maritime operations. Considering the strong likelihood of the Sang-O submarine's participation in any possible future conflict with North Korea, it's clear that capturing a Sang-O submarine would be highly beneficial to the United States. However, the strange vehicle in the photos was not an enemy vessel, nor was it even a functioning submarine at all. In reality, it was a life-size steel replica known as the Weapon Set to Hit Threat Target, or WSTT, constructed in San Diego for U.S. Navy use. The sophisticated tool had been created to aid the Operational Test and Evaluation Force, or OPTEV-4, in assessing anti-submarine warfare technologies by mimicking the characteristics of potential underwater threats. With construction beginning in the 2002 fiscal year, the WSTT was ready between 2003 and 2004, incurring an overall expense of around $11 million, and was berthed near USS Dolphin, another trial submarine. The WSTT's design allowed for it to be temporarily submerged for testing purposes before being brought back to the surface. Unlike real submarines, the WSTT lacked any propulsion of its own, so this had to be done by a team of divers. During testing, it was subjected to a series of torpedo attacks. Primarily, it was aimed to bolster the development of the Mark 54 lightweight torpedo and enhance the Mark 48 heavyweight torpedo. However, the torpedoes used in these experiments were unarmed. They had been stripped of their warheads, meaning they could hit the WSTT without causing an explosion. Nonetheless, it is likely that even in this state, the physical impact from the torpedoes would cause some damage, though exactly how much remains unclear. In any case, the U.S. Navy's exploration with the WSTT was short-lived. A malfunction during a Mark 54 torpedo test in 2006 led to the vessel sinking off the coast of San Clemente, and this time it was not part of the drill. Although initial salvage plans were made in 2007, budget constraints led to their cancellation. It seemed that there may have been a glimmer of hope for the WSTT in January 2009, when a Navy salvage team on the USNS Navajo carried out an inspection of the wreck using the deep drone remotely operated vehicle in order to evaluate its current state and decide if it would be worth attempting to raise it. However, this operation has not resulted in further efforts to recover the WSTT. In 2011, the Navy acquired a groundbreaking underwater drone to replace the WSTT from UK company M-Subs, now part of the Submergence Group in the US. The Mobile Anti-Submarine Training Target, or MAST, is a 75-foot, 65-ton behemoth, probably making it the largest unmanned underwater vessel out there. The MAST outshines the WSTT in virtually all aspects. For example, one particularly useful feature is the fact that, unlike the WSTT, she has the capability for self-propulsion, which is done electrically. Once its lead-acid batteries are fully juiced up, this unmanned Leviathan can traverse over 65 miles underwater, cruising stealthily at a speed of around 3.5 miles per hour. Another advantage of the MAST is its user-friendly operation, as remote control allows operators to steer it through the depths and adjust its diving level with ease, adding a layer of versatility. Upon delivery, the MAST was taken to the Acoustic Research Detachment, an important facility for testing new Navy warships located on a lake in Bayview, Idaho. After a period of 11 months of fine-tuning, the next chapter of the MAST journey unfolded in 2012, when she was transferred for further evaluation to the Naval Undersea Warfare Center, or NUWC, in San Diego, a hub of maritime innovation and the former home of its predecessor, the WSTT. The MAST's final evaluation came in 2015. During a critical 12-day test, the unmanned marvel spent an unprecedented 7 hours beneath the waves, marking its longest dive to date. Not only did she excel underwater, but she also completed a 15-mile voyage on the surface, its longest yet. Since then, the MAST has continued to be utilized by the U.S. Navy for threat detection analysis training, countermeasures, and torpedo system testing, remaining stationed at the NUWC. Meanwhile, further developments and advancements in autonomous submarine technology continue to shape the future of underwater warfare and training. For instance, the Royal Navy's interest in large autonomous submarines like the Manta indicates a trend toward exploring new operational concepts and the potential use of unmanned systems in various naval applications. While the U.S. Navy hasn't expressed any plans to expand its own fleet of target submarines, as submarine technology leaps forward around the world, it may soon be time to do so. Countries like Russia and China are not only perfecting stealthier diesel-electric submarines with sophisticated air-independent propulsion, but also enhancing their nuclear-powered fleets. Moreover, the international sales of these advanced submarines mean the United States could face a broader array of underwater foes in the future, and it will need to ensure its defenses are up to the task. The Navy's original North Korean-inspired yellow submarine may continue to languish on the ocean floor, but its legacy looks likely to live on.